Scammers are not just exploiting vulnerabilities in your networks or your systems, but they're actually preying on your human instincts, such as your trust, your love, your sense of urgency.
Welcome, everyone. We're joined today by two experts who are engaging in one of the most important issues for the Asia Pacific region, and particularly here in Southeast Asia. But as we know, in this part of the world, relationships are built on trust. And oftentimes, these things aren't done in silos. Today, we have Keith Detros from Tech for Good and Rajat Maheshwari, the Senior Vice President for Strategy Growth at Mastercard and a key player on the Global Anti-Scam Alliance. Welcome both. Now, we asked you to bring a drink to represent the work that you do. So starting with you, Keith, tell us what we're drinking today.
I actually brought you a pandan blend. I was looking for a drink that represents Southeast Asia, and pandan can be found in our rice, drinks, cakes, desserts all across the region, and reflects what the Tech for Good Institute does. We bring Southeast Asia's perspectives onto the table. So hope you like it.
Very nice, very nice. Rajat, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Teh Tarik, so it's a very special drink, or probably the only drink where the excitement is more in how the drink is prepared than when you're drinking. So I love Teh Tarik.
All right, I love the blend. So it sounds like we have a bit of grounded trust and shared energy. So let's take a sip and then jump in.
Sure.
The pandan blend is amazing.
This is
That's
best.
good. This is good. All right, I think this is a good setup for this topic. And as I said, it's one of the most important topics that we're tackling both in the region and around the world right now. It's a $23 billion problem. And that's the problem around fraud and scams. So Rajat, let me kick it to you to start us off. Tell us a bit about the size of this problem. How big is the scams problem for us here in APAC?
It's bittersweet at Global Anti-Scam Alliance, where I'm serving as the chair. It's an organization which gathers international institutions, financial institutions, merchants, acquirers, governments, entities like Google and Tech for Good institutes together to size the problem. And you'll be surprised to hear the number. It's not in millions or billions we are talking about. It's in trillion. The global scam losses is 1 trillion. So if you talk specifically about Southeast Asia, we have lost close to $23 billion on scams itself. However, the silver lining is what we have seen in Singapore. We have seen a downturn on scams. From 24 to 25, we have seen a reduction of 18% in scam losses.
We just heard a good bit about the size of this problem. It's a big problem. But it's not just the scale at which the problem is going. It's also the sophistication of some of the types of schemes that the bad actors are putting out there. Tell us a bit about how you're seeing the evolution of this sophistication, why some victims say that they can spot a scam, but the data shows a very different story.
A trend that we have been seeing across our conversations in the region is this move from technical deception to emotional manipulation, where scammers are not just exploiting vulnerabilities in your networks or your systems, but they're actually preying on your human instincts, such as your trust, your love, your sense of urgency, for example. And you hear stories about deepfake voices, for example, people mimicking their loved ones' voices or impersonating authority, which then feels real to the victims. And thus, it's this problem of not only solving the scam problem from a technical issue, but also on this human level and human issue as well.
I think that's actually worth exploring a bit deeper, Keith, because there's a lot of work being done on the technical side, right? Using AI to combat some of the AI schemes that the bad actors are using. But I think there's more to say on how we build scam resilience as humans on this. And what are some of the things that Tech for Good Institute are working on this?
So we're looking at it from adaptive interventions, meaning we need to be able to grow or evolve as the scams also evolve. Let's take, for example, digital literacy. And it's not enough right now that we do digital literacy from a perspective of how to use technologies or emerging technologies, but we should also reshape and be adaptive on maybe we also include financial literacy on top of it, and maybe data literacy and AI literacy. A second point as well on building this resilience is the scam victim support. A lot of the conversations that we have heard is that scams are not just a financial issue, it's also a human issue. And the underreporting comes from shame, from distress. And even a GASA report in 2024 noted that 67% of respondents in Thailand did not even report a scam. And this is where the victim support interventions will be key, because building resilience is not just about preventing the scams from coming to you, but also rebuilding the confidence of people to participate back in the digital economy once a scam happens to them.
So, Rajat, how you're seeing this? I mean, in your role at Mastercard, right? Because oftentimes these scams ultimately end in some type of economic extraction from victims. So, in the financial services industry, how are you seeing this problem, and what are some of the things that Mastercard is doing to try to get ahead of it?
If you see the payment trails, what we operate, usually if you see a bad transaction on your credit card, what you do? Usually you will just call the bank and says that I have not done this transaction. And then there is a dispute resolution mechanism which schemes are providing to see that whether it's a bad transaction, who is responsible and where the liability sits. And then that's how the disputes gets resolved. This changes completely if you talk about the real-time payments. If I'm doing an instant payment to you, there's limited things what I can do, once the money is gone and it's real time. And with AI coming in, it's getting more faster. So that's where the problem is that once the money goes out of the account, it goes out of your jurisdiction. It's very difficult to trace and bring back the money. That's why we are seeing that there is a massive rise on scam numbers. What we are doing to address this problem is something what we have done for many years. We have been using AI for last 20 years to stop the fraud happening on our network. So we are bringing those best practices now in this ecosystem to see how we can proactively detect the scams before it actually happens.
Yeah, but to Keith's earlier point around just the sophistication of some of these scams, we know that this is not something that one organization or even one country can solve alone, right? It does not operate in silos, right? The bad actors are going from platform to another platform, from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. So it is a kind of multifaceted problem here. What do you see as seams or blind spots in this kind of handoff between the tech platforms and the banks, for example?
There are two seams, if you may, or cracks that vulnerable people or segments of the population can fall. And it's across industries or sectors and across borders. Scam works where some of these scams even start offline, where it's on a call. You move from a call to a text message to a social media platform and then to a bank. And each of these have handovers of the victim in each of these cases. That's from the sector's perspective. But there's also cracks and seams across borders, because what technology has also done is that a scammer can be in one country, victimize a person in another with an infrastructure on a third country, and have a payment in a fourth country.
Wow.
And these are like the kinds of scam victim journey that at each of the handoffs across industries and across borders, there's no one single entity or organization that has a view. And this is where collaboration actually is key, where how do we ensure that we are sharing the right information at the right time so that we can intervene at each stage of a scam victim journey?
I think that's a good segue into some of the great work that you guys are doing with the Anti-Scam Alliance, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's something I fully resonate with Keith, what he just mentioned. Scam chain, it's a journey, right? Which is a big gap, right? If you know the origin where it started, you'll be in a better position to say whether it's a good transaction or whether I can trust with this transaction or not. So that's something what Global Anti-Scam Alliance has done with GSE signals, how we can enable the sharing between different interaction points and also between different corporations or entities operating in this complete chain to be able to stop it earlier. See, we will not be able to bring the scams down to zero, but if we are able to stop the scams earlier, we have a good chance that it's not going to scale further.
There's also a human side of this as well, as we were talking about earlier, Keith, with the empathy and bypassing our instincts. What are some of the things that you guys are doing or thinking about to help build scam resilience in populations?
From the Tech for Good Institute's perspective, as a policy research think tank, we do advocate for a layered approach to building scam resilience across Southeast Asia. As Rajat mentioned about this scam journey and where there are multiple players actually at play, different organizations are well placed to intervene at different stages of a scam. It can be at the protect level, it can be an identify and detect level, it can be at a response and recovery level, or it can be an adaptive response or intervention. And this is where several organizations can have several roles. For example, the banks can have the cooling off periods. The law enforcement people can have coordination to stop the scam centers. But even nonprofit organizations such as at the ASEAN Foundation, for example, and Google.org doing the Scam Ready ASEAN to raise awareness across Southeast Asia against scams, where we are able to come together and collaborate, bringing each level of expertise at different stages of a scam journey.
Let's actually talk about a specific example. Tell us a little bit about Singapore's policy around this and how this goes beyond just determining who's liable if something bad happens, but also helping us move to a place where we can be proactive in circuit breaking a scam.
So what Singapore has done is a great case study or an example what others should be doing. You know, scams, if you see the complete scam chain, what we discussed earlier, it's a massive problem. And if you ask a telco company or a platform company or a financial institution that solve the problem, I don't think so they'll be able to solve the problem because they don't control the scam chain. They don't control all the entities in the chain. So what this shared framework has done is that it has given responsibilities to institutions that, okay, for telco, you have to do these things to make sure that you are not allowing the scam messages or bad calls to flow from your network. To platform companies, they have given guidelines. To financial institution that, okay, you know, everything will bypass because most of the scams are authorized in nature. So if I'm in love and I want to transfer my money to you, Keith, then who can stop me? It's my credentials, it's my account. Everything is mine, and money is also mine. Technically, government also cannot stop me. So in authorized space, that's the challenge, right? So by giving these responsibilities to individual, this framework has helped people or institutions to see what they have to do, how they can handle their side of the things to make this anti-scam solution effective. It's not really pointing fingers or putting liability on anyone, but it's about how do we work together and what responsibilities each one should pick up to solve the problem.
As we zoom out, based on where we are today, what does a truly secure region look like from your perspective?
I'd love to bring a different perspective where, aside from protecting the people for a confident digital society, we also rebuild the confidence once they actually experience a scam. And that's where this victim support part of this confident digital society is very important. Not just on the protecting, but making them more resilient when scam happens to them.
To me, Wilson, a safe and secure region is people having trust in the digital ecosystem. They should not lose the trust. There will be challenges coming in. Scam is one of them. We have cyber challenges, privacy challenges. If we are able to secure the trust in the ecosystem, I think that's really important. So a North Star to me is like policy, education, and technology working hands in hands to make the ecosystem secure and trustworthy for the citizens.
The conversation has been fascinating, but it wouldn't be a policy podcast if we didn't end on a policy question. If you had a single call to action to policymakers, things that they can do to help us get ahead of this problem, what would be that call to action?
I think it's, if I have to describe it in one word, Wilson, it will be collaboration. What we have seen in case of Gaza when we started the Global Signal Exchange, we are seeing actually a shift. We are seeing how different organizations from different domain are coming together and sharing the information. And we are seeing the impact as well, that how it can help in reducing the number of scams and also the scam losses. So collaboration is key. We had a punchline for Gaza 2025 that you need a network of good actors to defeat a network of bad actors.
So, Keith, what about you? What would your call to action to policymakers be?
I think inclusion. Let me bring it back to society level. And we often think about last mile in terms of access and connectivity. But a different perspective is last mile should also be on safety. And my call to action is that as we design scam resilience interventions, we hope that we keep the most vulnerable populations in mind so that no one gets left behind as we make a more secure digital economy.
Well, Keith, Rajat, thank you so much for the conversation today. Thank you for joining our podcast. Let's go continue to fight this big problem together. Thank you.
Pleasure to be
Thank
here.
you, Wilson.